Welcome back for another episode of Technique Tuesday. Today we're going to be doing stars. First things first, I've got a backdrop. We have our canvas at a little bit of an angle just so the camera doesn't pick up so much glare, but you guys could lay your canvas flat to do these effects, and that way you'll be less likely to drip down the canvas while you're doing them. So I'm just going to show you a couple different ways that you can put on stars. So first things first, we've got our pointed brush. You might think, of course, to use the tip of the brush, which is a very small brush that gives you little stars, but I'm going to use the end of that brush. So what I'll do is I will start by just putting a dot on my canvas, and then you can do a whole family of dots as the dots get smaller as you run out of paint on the end of the brush. And you can do varying pressure, varying distance from each other, and do a really nice clumping of very bright stars. And you see that looks really nice, very simple, and it stays round because the end of the brush is of course round. If you're looking for less perfect stars, you want maybe a little bit more motion, use the bristles of this little brush. So you'll just dot them in there, and you'll use the very end, and you'll just get less perfect, but you will get a little bit more control over how much pressure and how big those dots are. So you might get more variety that you're looking for. You can also push and get bigger dots here. Now, one of my favorite things to add to a galaxy or to a really beautiful night sky is to add some stars that look like they're maybe a little bit more out of focus or like they're glowing a little bit more. So I'll use my brush here, the bristles, and I'll pick up a little bit of my chosen color. You can use literally any color for this part right here. I'm going to use a nice bright yellow, which I think will sit nicely on my dark background. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a good chunk of this color on my painting, and then you can leave it just like that, but if you want to make it a little bit more blurry, what you can do is take your finger and really quickly, with practically no movement, you're just going to kind of wiggle this around in a little circle. You can ghost out that shape, and then pick up more of your color and add a dot in the center. You can even use white instead of yellow. Here is in another color. So this is turquoise right here. So I'm just going to take a clean finger, make sure there's no other paint on here, maybe not your other color that you just used. And then you just go ahead and plant it straight down and then wiggle kind of in place. Don't move your finger too much, just kind of wiggle it in place in a little circle. Double check it before it dries out, make sure it's nice and even. I've got a little area that's not even, so I'm just going to go ahead while it's still wet. Make sure it's nice and spread out. And you can kind of push your finger more and more towards those edges just as the paint dries. It'll be a little bit harder to do. So what I'm going to do then is put the dot in the center, maybe with white or another color, and you have yourself a galaxy of many colored stars. And if you watered down your paint, you'd get even more transparent with those colors. And you might have been wondering why I have a toothbrush here. Well, this is the absolute best way to apply a whole sky worth of stars. I'm going to get some water, kind of load up the water, make sure you kind of scoop that water and it's in the bristles. I'm going to go over to my palette. I like to just kind of tap a little puddle of water there. What you're going to want to do is have a consistency of maybe heavy cream. So that much water to how much paint. And you can do this with any color. And that should get you some stars that are not dripping down your canvas, but they're not so thick that they don't splatter across the whole canvas. So work with the consistency, experiment, and you can get some really great stars. Number one thing, never pull away from yourself. Always pull the bristles towards you, and that's going to spring them in the opposite direction. You can hold your brush like this and just kind of pull with your finger, or I like to just take my thumb and hold the whole thing and just kind of pull that way. The other thing is make sure that you kind of point in towards the edges of your canvas. You're always kind of just pointing inwards because where it sprays, it's going to go ahead and just kind of go all over the place. So if you were to hold it up here and then spray up there, it's going off the canvas. So just make sure the nose is kind of directed inwards. One other thing is just make sure there's no goobers of paint inside the bristles. So you might need to kind of wash that off if there's a big chunk there. And then just make sure it's got a nice coating on those tips. And then you just splatter across your canvas. Now this paint is going to be a little bit transparent. It's not going to be maybe those bright white stars. So what we like to do is maybe do this in a couple different colors. I'm going to do some turquoise as a next layer. By doing this in multiple colors, you get so much more depth in the sky. It looks like a deep galaxy with some darker stars in the back, some brighter ones in the front. And it just gives a little bit more variety. Make sure you're changing the direction of your brush stroke. I'm going to combine all of these different textures and different star styles into this. What I'm going to do with this technique is add it to a painting, and you're going to see it right here.